Welcome to Boiling Point, the podcast to motivate ever-evolving entrepreneurs and forward-thinking movement pioneers. Our hosts, filmmaker Greg Hemmings and executive coach Dave Vale, are turning up the heat in the world's business communities. Our interviews with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and movement makers are raising the temperature of inspiration. Live from the hottest studio in this quadrant of the universe, here are Dave and Greg.
Dave Vale, it's so good to see you in the flesh, within a meter apart of each other, for the very first time in our COVID-friendly podcast booth. You and I have been connecting all through the pandemic via Zoom, and now we're back.
Okay, and you know what's weird is we are, haven't seen each other physically in quite some time.
I miss you.
I miss you too, man. But in a weird way, it doesn't feel like you had to remind me. I was like, has it been that long? Because have we not?
February probably,
because there's a great, and we're going to introduce our guest John on that's with us here in a second, but I want to include him in this conversation because John, we did have a plan to meet on the Canadvac River.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I was coming down to see you, and I was on this jet ski, and the waves were so terrible, like so bad that I had to phone. I could barely hear you. Because the wind was so terrible, and so that would have been our one physical meeting.
Yeah,
that never happened.
And once again, the Sea-Doo.
The Sea-Doo was fine.
No, but it's just the adventures of the Sea-Doo. The Sea-Doo is totally fine. It's just when sometimes it runs out of gas in the middle, and other times when you lose your phone.
The other Sea-Doo.
It's always the Sea-Doo.
I know.
I love those adventures.
I know.
So you're a resilient guy, Dave, in continuing the adventures on the Sea-Doo, and I can't wait for us to get connected on the river sometime soon.
I know.
I use the word resilience, as you know, because you and I have been talking to ONB a lot during the pandemic.
Yes. Because
ONB, Opportunities New Brunswick, has been supporting businesses for many years, businesses like ours, and right now they're really focusing on celebrating those companies and entrepreneurs who are really being resilient through these times. And you've had more conversations than I have, Dave. What have you've been talking about?
Well, they've got a great list of clients that have got through this really tricky time. And we are lucky to be in a province that's doing relatively well.
Yeah.
And we're just thankful for that. But that doesn't mean there's not sectors that have more and more challenges. And John's going to share some information on that. Opportunity New Brunswick is set up really to attract for investment, to attract businesses that would want to set up in New Brunswick for the reasons we know, right? And then they support businesses that are here. We had talked about. It would be great to share some stories that are New Brunswick centric around companies doing some pretty amazing things. So that's going to happen, and we're here to talk to John about, and we're going to get John
Simon,
who's going to tell us a little bit about what he's learned about resiliency and some of the challenges, man, that the last few months have presented for people
the travel industry in general.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get an introduction, John. John, you're, besides a good friend, you are also a ninja in the tourism sector. Why don't you explain to our listeners a little bit about who you are?
Sure. Well, Greg's been a client and a partner in crime in some of our adventures over the years. We're all entrepreneurs here, and I started Kefi around 3 years ago, designed on mostly outward bound, adventure type travel, custom type vacations. And so we spent 3 years growing that up. And as an entrepreneur, you're fostering your baby and things. And sort of 12 months ago, I started negotiating to buy a much larger organization called Canadvac Travel Services, which is a receptive operator and a receptive.
What is that? Yeah, just tell me.
Yeah, a receptive operator works with travel agencies around the world to bring people to Canada.
Okay. Yeah.
So Canadvac Travel Services has contracts and relationships with travel agencies, particularly in Europe. When a client comes into an office in Europe and they want to travel to Canada, that agency contacts us and we handle the booking and the planning for people here.
Right on.
And we're the largest Atlantic Canadian based one.
Yeah.
So significant business, and it was a long negotiation to arrange that acquisition merging with Kefi. And as luck would have it, March 1st was our closing day. What was the sort of a pinnacle of an entrepreneurial achievement to grow this company by leaps and bounds and make this acquisition happen. So that was sort of a high point in the career.
Right.
which very quickly changed.
And interesting, just as a quick aside, John mentioning that having a client, John actually put a package together for our family in Cuba that very week. So about 2 or 3 days before you closed, we were in Cuba enjoying the beautiful beach. We decided not to do the internet or anything because it cost an extra amount of money and whatever. Let's be disconnected. We did not know that COVID was coming. We heard before we left that there's a little bit in Vancouver or like BC. We did not know what was happening. A week later, we land on the 10th. No connection to back home. No news, no nothing. And we're told that our kids have to stay home from school for 2 weeks.
Yep.
We're like, what? And then we realized 2 weeks later, everybody had everything shut down. So just to give people some context on the timing of your acquisition, even on the day you got the acquisition, we weren't really dealing with a pandemic yet.
Exactly. That's literally what happened. March 1st, I traveled down to Nova Scotia to the head office there with a big plan about how we're going to join these companies, all these growth plans, all these transitional things we're going to do. And by the end of the week, we were in major triage mode, handling thousands of cancellations for both businesses and wondering how we're going to keep this business alive. Literally, so from a peak to as far down as you could go in 5 days.
Yeah. Before we get into that, what was, from an entrepreneur perspective, like what was so attractive about Canadvac to you, and how did and we want to get into what's happened.
Sure.
But I'm kind of curious about how that opportunity emerged to begin with, because I had no knowledge of this.
Yeah, Canadvac was attractive because Kefi, as I mentioned earlier, focuses a lot on custom sort of outbound vacations, people leaving Canada, going elsewhere in the world to explore.
Right.
Although we do some custom travel internally. Canadvac is sort of the other side of the coin, where they're bringing people to Atlantic Canada. And my personal passion has always been about how we can get Atlantic Canada as a more attractive destination for people around the world to travel to. And Canadvac was that. They were successfully over a few decades grown a business, bringing people to Atlantic Canada and promoting the accommodations, the restaurants, the unique experiences that Atlantic Canada has to offer. Yeah. So really it's fit in still with my travel passion, but it also fit in with my passion about the part of the world that we live in and about what we can offer to other people in the world.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So John, getting back to like in all definition, this is it's a disastrous, awful thing, totally out of your control, 100% out of your control. What happened next? And we know that we've got some federal help that have helped a lot of us entrepreneurs keep our employees paid. Did you get in touch with any of those programs at all? Was it a full shutdown? What did you do to keep on pushing through?
Yeah. Well, shock first, really, just shell shocked in terms of what to do. Did some, as I mentioned, immediate triage with both companies, where we, working with our clients to handle all those cancellations, trying to get refunds, trying to get credits if there weren't refunds available, trying to help them with their travel insurance claims. So there was an immediate rush, all hands on deck to deal with that. There was also immediate rush for me to figure out, okay, how long is this going to last? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? We need to arrange some financing to make sure, knowing that there's going to be zero revenue, literally, how do we get ourselves through to that point when things recover and things will be rosy again? So that was the month of March and into April. We're really just heads down, working that through, and then at the same time had to make some hard decisions. Right, we had to cut costs, so we had to lay off staff. We closed the physical offices and, canceled leases there, even as far as, canceling our lease for our Xerox photocopier, right? So we cut things down to the bone, kept the staff that we could, and worked very hard at making sure we serviced all our clients, both here locally and overseas. And just, by the end of April, we sort of could pick our head up a bit and say, okay, we've dealt with the cancellations. We've dealt with the financing issue for at least the foreseeable future. Now what do we do? So that was sort of the first run of the roller coaster.
Yeah.
But there's no, I'm wondering, there's no real game plan to follow, right? Like, none of us have, but, particularly like that. So what was, how are you getting through this? Like, how, like you're saying that in retrospect, it sounds so like, oh, what a good plan. But it must've been by the seat of your pants.
It was. I switched from bottled wine to box wine because I couldn't afford the bottled wine anymore.
We call that card Bordeaux over at Ragged Point.
So there was a lot of card Bordeaux in use.
Yeah.
But from a staff point of view, I needed to keep them focused on what's in front of them. So they didn't get discouraged, and I didn't lose the expertise I had in house. From my point of view, I had to focus on what's in front of me, because otherwise, if I thought about the bigger picture, and as entrepreneurs, it's not just you. It's all your staff.
Yeah.
Your employees get paid before you do. If there's no money, you don't get paid. You're signing guarantees, personal guarantees, so you're going further in debt for all this stuff. So if you focus on that, you're gonna have problems. So keep an eye on what's in front of us, and then on the background, we start looking at what pivots can we do, to use that word. So with the Kefi piece, we started looking at staycations. How can we get Maritimers to redirect their away vacations to Atlantic Canada, and started building some of those very quickly and promoting those, and physically going out and doing videos around the provinces to show people what's available. So that was, sort of a forward thinking, what can we do this summer? On the Canadvac side, it's at least for the next 6 months, it's dead. So let's focus on getting our 2021 contracts and product inventory in place. So when things start to recover, we can quickly be in place for that. And that was sort of the May, June time period into July, where we're sort of trying to be proactive, trying to look for ways to engage the public and stay in business, essentially.
Okay. Wow.
And the theme right now for this set of podcasts is resiliency. And there's something about us entrepreneurs that is abnormal, not even human, which is resilience and grit and the ability to push through. And let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how have you been able to keep hope and stay strong through this, and keep a vision for, you use the words, when it gets back to being rosy. So we have to assume it's going to, and skeptics might say that's far down the road. Others might say, well, we got to plan for the opportunity.
Yeah, it's tough because, into July, when we had this not new direction, but we had a plan that we were following as we rolled into August. Once again, you sort of hit that downside in the roller coaster, where staycation stuff was great from a PR point of view and lots of engagements and things like that. Wasn't resulting in any business. Right? Maritimers weren't taking that 2-week vacation in Portugal and doing it instead in the Maritimes. They were just taking off on weekends. So that wasn't resulting in business. On the other side of the business, the international side, the Canadvac piece, we were having rolling cancellations as months went by, and it became obvious the fall wasn't going to happen. So that was gone. And now it's becoming obvious, first half of 2021 might not happen. So, you talk about resilience, we've sort of started in a very down place. We went up and had a plan. That plan has seemed to fall. And now we're trying to figure out what the new plan is. I don't know what the secret is besides not quitting, right? I mean, you've got everything invested in this. We have to believe that there's a point where it's, the pandemic there'll be a vaccine, or it'll burn itself out. And Atlantic Canada needs to have the services we offer in place if we ever hope to have a tourism industry again, right? When someone in Germany picks up the phone to book a trip, there has to be someone on this side to handle that. Otherwise, all the great progress that New Brunswick Tourism, Nova Scotia, PEI, Newfoundland have done in the last 5-10 years, which really started to gain momentum, it's all going to be lost. And you literally start from scratch again with those organizations overseas.
You know what I was thinking? And it's funny, you talk about passion or resilience and grit. And I just did a session on this, an in-person session yesterday, which was a really weird thing to do because it was all socially distanced.
Yes.
And it was this massive room, and there was like 22 of these leaders from this organization. And I walked in, and before they were saying, do you want a lapel mic? I was like, well, I'm like, just like, over the phone, I was being polite. I said, yeah, sure. I'm like, I'm not using like, why would I use a lapel mic? I go in the room. It's just like there's people like I can barely see people at the end
something like a big hotel conference room.
Yeah, and they were all 6 feet apart,
all spaced out.
Yeah, and
so it looked like an empty room.
Yeah, it was like because you typically have this in a tiny little room together, right? Or not tiny, but you know what I mean. There's only 22 people or whatever, right? With this particular team. Anyways, I used the lapel mic because I was like, this is great. It turned out it actually went really well. But one of the topics is grit and resilience. And so resilience, as I started started digging into it a number of months ago, was this idea of ability to bounce back. And it sounds like you did that initially, and then you've subsequently done that. Grit, what I found was interesting, is it's about passion and perseverance to hit long-term goals. And I'm hearing a combination of two things. I'm like, because you said, Kefi is like your passion, your love, and obviously Canadvac as well.
Yeah.
But it seems to me, as I listen to you, that that belief and love of travel and passion for it and wanting to expose people to things has to be kind of pushing you through this.
It definitely, I mean, it is the passion. It's what I'm interested in. It's what I like to do. And I like to see people experience these, whether it's coming here or going somewhere else. I think the part of grit that matters to me is just not quitting, right?
Yeah.
There are things when you're faced with these situations, there's things you can't change. Like I can't deal with COVID. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
All I can deal with is someone needs a cancellation, needs to get their money back, or next year we need to have a product available for these clients to book. So I can pick the things I can deal with and I can focus on those, or I can, wallow in darkness worrying about the stuff that I've really got nothing I can change.
Yeah.
Right. COVID will be COVID and it's going to be dealt with when it's dealt with.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you feel like if you can at least, and I don't know how I would be responding personally, that's like I just want to acknowledge, like, God love you. That's a hard thing to go through. I can't even imagine how challenging that is, and the timing of the acquisition.
Yes.
I mean, holy cow. Do you feel like there's this, I mean, maybe potentially we could talk in 2 years and you could tell us, oh my God, that was the best thing, because it helped us come out stronger out of the chute. And as a result, is there any of the part of you that feels that?
There's a part of me that wants to be able to say that in a couple of years. And
Yeah.
certainly that's what I'm focused on in terms of some of the other activities that we're doing strategically is to make sure we're going to be out of this stronger and hopefully be in a position to represent Atlantic Canada stronger in the future. And so that's the tack we're taking. That's the work we're doing with provincial governments as well strategically. And that's the story I want to tell. It could be in 2 years I look back and it was a complete failure and disaster. I want to be able to look back if that's the case and say I did everything I could do. Right. But if COVID drags on for 5 years, it drags on. So once again, I'm going to focus on the things I can affect. I'm going to focus on the goals that I have for the company and the staff and for the clients and deal with those things. And the rest, we'll adjust and adapt as we go.
So a theme of control, what you can control.
Yeah. John, I'm just curious, and this relates to many industries, this question, but a lot of your customers on the Canadvac side, they've halted operations as well.
Yeah.
The resilient ones are doing what you're doing and they're figuring out ways to ride the storm.
Yeah.
And then they will be back. Question I have for you is, I don't know how many clients that represents on the Canada side, but are you able to stay in regular contact with those resilient ones and plan together, saying as soon as we can start booking again, this is how we're going to do it? It might be 2 years down the road, but so you're not forgotten, or Atlantic Canada is not forgotten. And what are some of the strategies that you're doing to? Yeah.
So on that note, with those clients internationally, we've been reaching out on a regular basis, touch base them, to make sure they know we're still here, that our product is still here, gauging where they're at, and and in some cases negotiating arrangements where maybe they paid us deposits and we don't want to have to pay that all back, so how do we handle that, or that we have to pay it back, how do we arrange for the payments of that? We've had some of our clients overseas have already gone out of business, bankruptcy and things like that. We're expecting more this fall as the seasons wind down and they're going into sort of a dark period without revenue. So we've come up with different strategies and offers that we're making to them around integration, IT integration between systems, marketing campaigns, familiarization tours and things. So we are definitely staying very engaged with them to make sure, once again, they know that we're being proactive with them. So when things do recover, they know the one that helped them out and didn't charge them a bunch of cancellation fees, right? When they had to cancel thousands of trips, we weren't nickel and diming them $50 a time, right? We just said, let's just get it done. We'll help you out. And, next time we'll be doing more business together.
Yeah. That's a long-term view.
Yeah.
That's smart.
And that's probably the lesson that other listeners can take away from this is like, especially when everybody's going through the same hurt. It's like, how do we work as a community to figure this out? And you know what, the way the energy goes, it comes back to you in both cases. Right. So that's good. What are some of the things, John, becoming more local? Like we are in a province that has done very well, keeping our numbers very, very low throughout this whole thing and very controlled. And staycationing, like you said, has been successful on a weekend warrior basis. And of course, the province came up with this amazing incentive of 20% back if you stay the night and eat at a restaurant.
And how long does that?
Till end of October, I think?
No, I believe they extended it through the winter now as well.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know the close. It might be March 1st, but you have to check to confirm, but they did extend it.
No, because winter tourism needs the same thing.
This is an opportunity for some of these places.
With that, you had a hard time selling staycation packages. Is there any innovation that you can do to start owning that weekend warrior market and get people excited in the near term to figure out like ski packages and snowmobile packages, whatever?
The challenge is, I'd like to say yes, but we've learned now from what we've done is that definitely like a 3 to 4 day package doesn't work with most of the Maritimers because they aren't doing those longer vacation type things locally. So it's probably 2 to 3 days. So we could repackage, do 2 to 3 days. But the reality is for most Maritimers, we're all pretty independent people. And so if you're going to go to PEI or Cape Breton or to northern New Brunswick, you know where you're going, you're probably what you're going to do, and you're just going to book it and go. Mm-hmm. So, and that's fine, right? I mean, it was an experiment when we tried it. We think we've helped our operators because we've helped promote, and we can see thousands of people coming through our staycation packages, looking at them, and through the the glory of Facebook, I can see them the next week actually up there doing those things.
oh, great! Oh, great. Shucks!
But that's positive because we need those operators to survive too, right? Regardless of what happens with people doing business with us, we need those kayaking companies, those hiking companies, those biking companies, those hotels and restaurants. They got to survive, so there's product left.
Right.
So it's good that people are doing that. But the reality is in the Maritimes, I think we can continue to promote the experiences and the places and get people out there on those weekends and perhaps sometimes during the week as well to help those operators survive, right? And we're going to continue doing that, and we'll probably come up with some wintertime 2-3 day packages with different suppliers around the Maritimes. But once again, with the expectation that we're going to help promote, we're probably not going to get a lot of direct business. But as long as that person goes snowmobiling and stays at Wilson's Lodge, or as long as that person goes to Charlottetown and takes a visit and a tour at Cows, that's good because that helps those businesses survive.
And like you point out, I mean, having that product, those services is critical to rebounding, right?
Well, it's your inventory.
Yeah,
it is.
Like I was talking to one of the operators here, and with the cruise industry essentially shutting down, and that they're concerned that a lot of the product might not survive,
Sure.
And they don't have a sense of. It was interesting to talk to them because they were saying it was hard for us to know. Where they're at, whether they just moved on to something else or,
It's a big issue, particularly in the receptive side, because it operates a year in advance. So we had to have all of our contracts, our rates and our tariffs and things over to Europe now for 2021. So you can imagine this summer, we're reaching out to all of these suppliers, and some of them aren't even open. Some don't know if they'll ever open. Some don't know how they're going to pay for all the PPE requirements. Some don't know what they want to charge next year because there's all these PPE requirements. So it made it very difficult for us to build up a product inventory to give to our clients overseas as an offering, and we had to go with less, right? Which was the end of the day, that's all we had to do. So it will be a challenge for what product will be left, right? When the businesses start again. Now it's a problem everywhere. It's not just Atlantic Canada, right? And so that's why proactively, at least if we get something together now and we get it over there and we educate them about it, we're in a better position. Right, than other places may be that are still struggling to try and figure out what's going to be open and what the prices will be.
So, and I'm curious, like, just because I've had these dinner conversations, but like, how, let's say COVID continues, are you have a sense of what could happen to support? Like,
I didn't want you to ask that question.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. What's your one?
Yeah, I mean, reality is a lot of these businesses, the government came out very aggressively with programs. Yeah. Most of it was loan-based, which is a challenge for a lot of these companies because if they're even able to get the loan, the profit margin in these businesses is very small, and how do they ever even repay it? But let's say they did. Okay. They got it. They got through this summer, on much limited revenue, if any at all. Yeah. The programs are like 6-month base. So right now they're running out. That loan they got is designed to run out now. Right. The business has run out now that they may have gotten. So now they're looking at, from now to next May, no revenue, a big loan they have to pay. And, do I stay open? Right. Do I just fold up shop now? What do I do? So in the conversations I've been having with various government officials, I've always been saying, like, the dark period wasn't this summer. The dark period's coming now, right? And how do we get these businesses, including my own, through this winter, through to a period when COVID is relaxed and that we can start generating revenue again so these people can stand on their own feet again, right?
Do you think, like, thank you for that honest answer. It's depressing, but it's important, I think, for people to hear, like for me to hear and listeners to hear, because, maybe that, it reminds me of the importance of getting out and supporting as much as we can, and maybe not maybe it's the smaller operators that probably would really benefit from it.
It's
as a
small and
consumer,
like
right?
it's all really
Right.
like it is across the board. You think of the larger hotel chains are sitting there at 5% occupancy all summer, 10% maybe,
Yeah.
right? There's risk of them closing just as much as there's risk of the
Yeah,
kayaking
that's
guy
a good point.
closing, and then all these other businesses, like they're all at risk right now, and they continue to be at risk, right?
And the other part I was wondering is like, do you see a time where, testing happens, like you can get off a plane and you get, and go to, some cool island that has maybe similar to New Brunswick in terms of low cases and all that kind of thing. Is that something you see, or is that just a pipe
Well,
dream?
the hope is for a vaccine, right? That's what
course,
everyone
yeah.
wants, and that's sort of, even though that's going to take time to roll out, but that's the sort of the global solution. My hope way back naively was that perhaps we'd have corridors between, Canada and the UK, or Canada and Portugal, or things where you could go back and forth because their cases were low, our cases were low. That's proven not to be the case, right? Because now we see a lot of those countries spiking all over again. So it seems, from what I'm hearing, is that Canada may open up for travel within Canada by Christmas, right? And maybe Canada will open up to other countries Q1 next year, right? Bearing in mind that that's the case, that means the first half of the year is gone really from an international travel point of view, because they're not even going to think about booking until after things are open and after they get a look and see what's happening. So I don't see in the short term any quick solutions unless the miraculous is the vaccine and they produce millions and millions of versions of it and get it out to everyone. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, John, we appreciate you coming in, sharing. Resilience isn't a story of, we figured it out. It's a story of when you're right in the trenches. It's the hero's journey. You're down in the darkest parts of the journey, and then we can't wait to bring you back when the other side comes, because this
story's not over.
We're in the middle of the story, man.
Somewhere in the middle. That's right.
And before we let John go, I mean, a question for me is like, like you're coming across as very positive, and you know what I mean, and laughing and all this kind of stuff, and which is like I really admire. Like, it's inspiring. I'm like, how do you keep that? And what's the advice, maybe?
Devices come drinking with John and Greg.
Yeah,
sometime.
exactly.
But I mean, seriously, that's amazing.
Well, I mean, there's been some down periods for sure.
Of course,
right?
100%.
But as I say, you can wallow in that and just let everything fall down around you, or you just move forward.
Yeah,
right.
It's a life
resilience
attitude.
and grit. You just got to move forward, right? Just as entrepreneurs, we've got too much invested in this stuff to sort of quit.
Yeah.
You've got employees, you've got family and clients, everyone counting on you. So you got to keep moving.
Okay, man.
Yeah, last time I saw John, we said the same thing, because people are like, John just keeps smiling, kind of like you, Greg. Like,
well, I'm like,
insanity.
Like, no, but I want to honestly keep on hanging with both of you guys, because it's good for my mental health. Because I'm like, my God, like I just don't know, but you got to keep moving forward. But there's a way you're doing it. And anyways, at some point we need to dissect that and understand that, because I'm amazed. Like, I'm just really impressed. And I think, not everyone's responding the same way. And it's not to your point. And I certainly appreciate it. And I wonder if there is a person who can honestly say, "Oh, everything's been great." Like, there are dark times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And but that doesn't mean that defines us. But I think it's okay to admit it too, right?
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thanks
man.
for being here, guys.
Yeah. How can people learn more about you
and book
with you, support you,
even locally, even booking hotels?
Well, I mean, obviously you can go to our website, kefitravel.ca. There are some staycations there. KEFI
right.
travel. Yeah. So there's information there, and most of our work is more custom. So people call up and say, I want to go to Shediac for a few days based on what we've seen. So I want accommodations, I want a lobster tour, I want this and that. So we can do that sort of thing. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm happy to promote that stuff. I don't really need to do it. And Maritimers are happy to do themselves. They should go ahead. I think some of the initiatives that we'll focus on now is that COVID will end. And when it does, there's going to be a flood of people trying to travel. And so we're reaching out to our clients now to say, I'm not looking for any money, but if you're thinking of somewhere, let's get it planned down, locked down with hotels and things, so that when it does open up, your place is saved, right? So people that are thinking that would be helpful for us to give us something to work on, not have any risk on their part. But at least then, when things open up and they say, I'm ready to go to Southern France, like, we've got it all laid out, we've got hotels done, and we can just book it.
Right.
and therefore they don't miss out on that dream vacation that they've been dying for the
Yeah,
last
because
6-9 months.
your hotels will
Yeah.
happily book without putting any money down just because it's something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really smart because I know
Yeah.
there's an appetite, man.
Oh, there's a huge appetite. People are waiting and people
Yeah.
are asking. So I think,
This would be the
if they're
time.
serious about it, this is a good time.
Yeah.
Get it planned, get it laid out.
Yeah.
And then, you're not locked in with money, you're not locked in on a date, but as soon as it's ready, you
Boom.
hit the ground running.
Okay,
Right.
that's excellent advice.
John, thank you so much for being on the
Thanks,
Boiling
guys.
Point, man. And Dave, you want to do the extra?
Nope.
Do you remember it?
No, it's too
So
long.
I just fade away.
no, you're with
Fades
us.
away,
You're with
fades
us.
away.
You're with us.
Well, listen, thank you everybody for listening to the Boiling Point. Check out more episodes like this at theboilingpointpodcast.com and like us and subscribe and check us out on iTunes or wherever you get your favorite podcasts, like the Unsettled podcast that you can get on Boiling Point as well. I'm saying that because Matt George just walked in, the host of the Unsettled podcast. He'll be coming up on the mic for next week rollout. And share this. And resiliency is the theme. Our friends at O&B have encouraged us to really focus on entrepreneurs who are pushing through. And John, you are a perfect example of that. So thank you.
100%.
And I should point out, OMB, has been very supportive as well during this process and helping out with advice and direction and things like that.
And book your next trip, folks.
Yes, exactly.
Get on it.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Boiling Point. Remember to rate and subscribe to us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at Boiling Point Pod. To see more from Dave Vale, check out leadershipunleashed.ca or visioncoachinginc.com. And on Twitter at Dave_Vale. And to catch up with Greg, visit hemmingshouse.com and at Greg Hemmings on Twitter. Thanks for listening, and remember, keep that pot boiling.